In the 19th century, and for most of the 20th, Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania was famous around the world as a city of iron and steel, manufacturing and heavy industry. In the 1980s, however, the steel industry faltered and failed. At the same time, the city was developing new reasons for pride and prominence. And although some work continued at a few steel mills, new medical research and breakthroughs in healthcare helped transform the Steel City into what you might call the transplant town.
The story of Pittsburgh is that it's a transplant city. It's not the steel city anymore, it's a healthcare city. And it's all happening really right here in Oakland.
In Pittsburgh, you absolutely live and die transplantation. Your life is transplantation.
Pittsburgh also has a very strong work ethic, I believe, and I think many other people believe, and several mottos. I keep citing the old Steeler motto, or whatever it takes, and that's been true with transplantation also.
Pittsburgh is rather synonymous with heart and liver transplants, I think.
I love Pittsburgh. Believe me, what Pittsburgh has done for me is unbelievable.
Pittsburgh's international reputation as an organ transplant center has grown primarily because of research and pioneering medical work done at this complex of hospitals between Fifth Avenue and the University of Pittsburgh Stadium in Oakland. The doctors do more transplants here than at any other hospital in the world. Dr. Henry T. Bahnson came to Pittsburgh in 1963 as both chief of the Department of Surgery at Presby and chairman of the Department of Surgery at the Pitt Medical School. Dr. Bahnson leads a team of outstanding surgeons, including cardiothoracic surgeons Dr. Bartley Griffith and Dr. Robert Hardessy. Dr. Hardessy is somewhat of a Pittsburgh native, originally from New Brighton, PA, in Beaver County.
I remember going to a national meeting with Bahnson and Griffith, and we were walking over to the local hospital, and Bahnson said to us, "What would you think about Starzl coming to Pittsburgh?" And of course, we were excited about that possibility. Just beginning in transplantation, we thought his experience, particularly in immunosuppression, although he had not been active in heart transplants, would be invaluable to us. And I'll never forget Bahnson's comment to us, and he sort of shrugged his shoulders a little bit, and he said, "Well, I'm not so sure Pittsburgh can handle Starzl."
Starzl, Dr. Thomas E. Starzl, in 1981 became director of transplant services at Presby and professor of surgery at Pitt's Medical School. He came from Denver, where in 1967 he performed the world's first successful liver transplant. When he came to Pittsburgh, he also brought with him the experimental drug cyclosporin, which helps control the body's natural reaction of rejecting a foreign organ. His arrival is often considered the start of what some call the Pittsburgh era.
Well, I think the Pittsburgh era had been in place for a long time. It's a great medical community, and we just added another ingredient to it, that's all. But it's been a wonderful, and I should say, probably underappreciated concentration of medical expertise for a long time. In surgery, in orthopedics, in neurosurgery, many areas of medicine, and in psychiatry, just to mention a few. So it wasn't as if there were a desert out here. It was really a blooming oasis, and then just another flower came along and plopped down. That's what happened.
Dr. Starzl came here at a very important time in the development of transplantation. There had not been any major progress or steps in progress in the 1970s. 1978, cyclosporin became available as a research drug, investigational drug, and Dr. Starzl had access to that. He came here in January 1981 and brought to Pittsburgh the possibility of using cyclosporin and testing it. It turned out to be a real advance and a major step forward. And that was at a time when successes were being obtained in transplantation of all the organs, hearts, livers, kidneys. And Dr. Starzl, along with that, brought the surgical expertise in liver transplantation that very few people in the world at that time had. So it was all a very fortunate circumstance at that time for Pittsburgh.
And this was a time when Presby, more than any other facility, had some maneuverability. And so when Starzl came, and transplantation began to rocket both in cardiac, kidney, and liver transplant areas, the operating theaters began to fill. And all of the skilled people that we had here began to get a great deal more work.
After my husband's first liver failed, I heard that Dr. Starzl was going after my husband's second organ. And someone said it was bound to work because the father of all livers was going for the harvest. And all livers, when they see Dr. Starzl, say, take me, take me. And I believe that.
I had a liver disease, primary biliary cirrhosis, one of 102 liver diseases. There's no known cause, and there's no cure for it, and it usually does end in transplant in order to live. And I chose Pittsburgh because more liver transplants are done here than all the other liver transplant centers in the United States put together. And I felt that if there were any complications, they must have certainly seen them, and I would be safer here. I had, of course, done a great deal of research and reading into this, and I felt that Starzl's team was far and above the rest of the transplant teams, and this was where I wanted to be.
I just like it. I mean, I'm very comfortable with a city that has so little pretense and has as one of its principal charms the fact that it never tore down all those old buildings and old stores. So Pittsburgh's a great city, the greatest.
Pittsburgh is 1, 2, 3, 4 steps ahead of most other transplant centers in the United States or across the world. If Pittsburgh can stay that way, whether Starzl remains here or not, then Pittsburgh will always be the transplant center, not necessarily of choice, but the transplant center that is leading the way.
It's a very serious situation, but my husband and all others that come to Pittsburgh, they have no choice. They are going to die, and this gives them the opportunity to live and have a good life. And I might tell you that my husband said the other day that he felt better than he had felt in 10 years. And I think that's a beautiful ending.